everybody, and welcome back to the #1 podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 154. Yeah. I am recording this. I'm recording this a little bit late. I don't know if it's going to be a Monday or Tuesday episode because I really wanted to get Arkham Origins done because I really wanted to talk about it, but we're going to save that for the end. I didn't really have an intro planned, which usually helps me kind of get my thoughts rolling. We also didn't have any questions from last week. I've mainly just been. I haven't done anything that interesting. I've mainly just been. This script has been a lot harder to work on. This might be one of the hardest scripts I've had to work on in a while. You guys will probably see it's absolutely going to be an hour again. I didn't mean for that. It just happens like that. I don't think I'd be satisfied. The level, I don't need it to be an hour or an hour plus. It's more like the level of analysis that I want and like the level of depth I want. I'm looking at like how long the script already is, and I'm thinking, okay. I guess it's just unavoidable at this point. I do it to myself. I've been in the throes of that. Also suffering from a heat wave. You know what sucks? I'm in here sweltering, sweating. I actually don't sweat that much, but I'm steaming, right? I'm like a steamed vegetable. And I tell people, yeah, there's like a heat wave going on right now. It's like 95 degrees. And they go, oh, okay. I didn't realize it was little bitch baby hour. Oh, I'm here. I'm sitting in here. There's no airflow in this fucking room. I don't have a ceiling fan. The sun beats on my window all day and just cooks me. I'm in a hot box. I have this like PC that's probably filling up the room with even more heat. So I've had to find some ways to cool down. I got busted the fan out to try and help me a little bit, but yeah, it was bad enough that I was like, dude, I can't work. I can't focus on anything. It's better. It looks like it's starting to cool down a little bit, but yeah, I can't really complain. California weather in general is so pleasant. I can't be like, I'm not living in like Death Valley. You know what's so funny? I saw this like, you know those people who will just repost Reddit posts and stuff, and in just the form of slides or something like that. Like, what are the comments? I saw one that was like, U.S. citizens, or a question for the Americans: what places should a tourist avoid? And there was a comment that was like, one of the replies to this question was, definitely stay away from Death Valley. And it's like, do you think they're fucking stupid? It's called Death Valley. Are you like, we named it that for a reason. Like, what if you're a tourist coming to America and you're like, I think I'll spend a day. I think I'll take a solo hike through Death Valley. Are you kidding me? That's like Mount Doom. That's that level of do not go here. Do not go here. Yeah, I'm just going to go to Death Valley in the summertime. You don't even have to know anything about it to know that's a terrible idea. I thought that was really funny. You know what else is funny? I believe that we live in a divine comedy. Case in point. I recently had a big old rant about Dark Souls on a previous episode. And then in the last episode, the very last episode, I had another rant about how I was sick of hearing about Elden Ring and saying that I should have played Bloodborne, but I can't. Every time it's come up, every time it's come up, I've said, oh, I'd love to have played Bloodborne. If they let me, there's a whole conversation about how there's like, I think video games as a medium have a serious problem that other mediums don't, which is a hardware dependency. Like, a book is a book, right? Let's go to oh, I don't have the latest technology for my book. You know, talk about film, right? Film or video. What do you need to watch film or video if you're into it? Like a VHS player, and then like a DVD player, and then maybe you upgrade it to like a Blu-ray, right? And Blu-rays also already play DVDs. So that's like 2 devices across what, like 40 years? Probably longer. When did VHS come out? VHS was in the 70s. Yeah. Like, oh my god, like it's over 40 years. Like 50 years of technology. You need 2 devices to watch anything that's ever been released physically. You know? Oh, you want to listen to music? There's like tapes, CDs, and now everything's on stream. Like, it is so easy to just access any of that stuff. Games, it's shit. You want to play something from 19, like if I pull out a VHS from 1982, I can. It's not that hard to find a machine that can play that for me, right? If I pull out a game from 1982, I'm like, dude, what do you mean it's on cassette tape? What computer runs a cassette tape? And that's, like, honestly, one of the biggest boons of emulation is that it frees an entire medium from the burden of, like, the technology it was produced for, right? Like, right now, there is this no man's land of games that are not so recent that you can probably still buy them, but they're old enough that, like, you know, it's something it was Bloodborne, like 2014 or something. It's in that no man's land. Like, it's not been re-released. It's not been a lot of like fighting games with their netcode had this exact same problem. Like, just in this little span of time where it's not old enough that you can easily emulate the console that it's on, but it's not new enough that you can just buy it easily on a modern storefront, like we're today, right now. And this whole PS4 emulation thing has been driven entirely. I'm not even going to say basically entirely. I'm going to say entirely by the desire to free Bloodborne from its chains, because it has been landlocked to the PlayStation 4. It has not been re-released. Is it that hard to get a copy? Probably not, but like it's yes, dude. It's stupid. It's stupid. Metal Gear Solid 4 is probably the last example of that, which has been stuck on the PS3 for forever. I saw someone say they had like a really funny dream where Hideo Kojima came back to direct another Metal Gear Solid game, and it came out and it was still a PS3 exclusive. That's funny. That's like you wake up in a cold sweat kind of a dream. And I bring all this up. Did I even I mentioned it. I basically mentioned it. PS4 emulation is like a thing, sort of. It's kind of a thing now. And it's a bit, we have the nation's top scientists working on specifically the test is just Bloodborne run. That's like the only thing anyone wants it for. And then I imagine, once it's fully playable and it's not buggy and all that, and you can enhance it to like a better frame rate and all that stuff, I'm sure they're going to move on to like making sure the rest of the library works. But like right now it's like Bloodborne. Right now they want to make Bloodborne work. And recently, so this project, it is called, I I believe it's called ShadPS4. It's currently available on GitHub. Excuse me. Yeah, ShadPS4. It is being developed by a guy named... What is his name? George Morales. So it is now to the point where you can boot to the main menu. It boots and you can go to the main menu. Trying to actually enter in-game, I don't know what it either can't handle it or it busts or something, or it breaks. I'm not sure. It's not playable. It's not playable past the menus. You know, as soon as it has to render like stuff, it starts falling apart. But that's a pretty big breakthrough. That's honestly, like, that's a great first step. I don't know the ins and outs of emulation or making an emulator work. So I can't say, like, oh, maybe how much work is left to be done. I'm sure it's also different depending on what system, like what hardware you're actually trying to emulate. Probably a lot easier than the PS3. But yeah, one of the reason I say, you know, the reason I call this a divine comedy is because maybe in like the next year or so, maybe year, 2 years maybe, there's a very good chance that you will just be able to play Bloodborne on your PC through this emulator. After I already played a Souls game for the first time and did not like it. And hey, speaking of, you guys remember that rant I had from last time? Stop talking about Elden Ring. Well, you might have noticed, you might know, you might be aware that one of my 10 billion channels is a clips channel specifically for this podcast. The Cellarcast clips. You might have even had them recommended to you. I don't know. I started that channel because I realized that doing a doing a weekly podcast that averages like 2.5 hours, let's say 2 hours, is a lot for some people. And maybe it would just be more convenient. Like, there's plenty of podcasts that I consume largely just through clip format. Of like, here's just the parts that I'm interested in. Maybe I don't want to like sit through like a whole big long thing, or maybe I'm not interested enough to listen to everything that these people talk about. But hey, you know, for like select subjects, I'll tune in. That kind of thing. It might just be, you know, more convenient for people, a little more approachable. So that's why I've been chopping up some select segments into clips that I think might be interesting from the podcast, and uploading them. And maybe it could be a way to funnel people towards listening to it. I don't know. Well, the success rate, the hit rate of the clips channel, it's spotty, you know. It's spotty, but occasionally a clip will do a little bit better than the other ones. Occasionally it'll do a lot better. And we had an instance of that with the Elden Ring clip. It got like... I can look at it right now. It got 148 views. Wow. Now, all right. That seems cool. You're like, oh, cool! Wow, that got a little bit higher viewership than you usually get. There is a thing you might have seen. You might have seen this when someone will like make a tweet, and the tweet will get kind of popular, and then you'll see them follow up on it and say, "Hey, I'm locking down replies on that tweet because this went outside its intended audience." Maybe you can understand that intellectually, but you have to feel it. You have to feel it. Because I'm not going to say they were out in full force, but the Souls guys, there were some Souls guys in there saying things that I should be embarrassed by the government for having to read. Okay? I'd like to share it with you, so that you guys can understand how I'm oppressed. Here's my favorite one. Someone says, people are absolutely glazing Elden Ring right now, but this is 110%. I don't like the thing because it's popular. Which is just it's just a baffling take to have about that segment. Because if you recall, if you watched it, you actually bothered to listen to it, it was really just about how the discussion around Elden Ring was annoying to me as someone who wasn't into it. I actually made zero judgment. I made zero judgment statements about the game because, again, I haven't played it. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's bad. I have no clue. I don't think I would like it, which I said. In fact, this person saying that people are glazing the game, that they're overrating it, is actually more of a negative value statement than I made about the game in that entire segment. So I said, I'm so fascinated by how you listened to this whole segment and came away with that. And they reply, more like, I listened to half of your video where you just kind of aimlessly ramble, LOL. Anything for that engagement though, right? So there is like, okay. There is a real, if you've never had like an audience and you haven't made things for people and, you know, set things out into the wild, you probably don't know. You probably don't know the experience of, you know, I make something where I express some kind of idea. And maybe I make some sort of argument. And then I upload it. And then I see a comment from someone who has clearly not watched the video. They clearly have not watched even half of it. And they are responding to something that I never even said. Responding like they're specifically addressing me. And it's either something that, it's either a point that it's a point that I rebutted in the video itself, but they didn't know because they didn't watch it. Or it is something they have literally just made up. There is there is a really special kind of frustration from that comes from someone telling you you're wrong for saying something that they like imagined. They just came up, they just synthesized some imaginary argument that you made, and now they're gonna call you out on it. It is so frustrating. it is maddening. You might have heard other people talk about this who make YouTube videos. You might have heard about this, but oh my god, living through it, I should get hazard pay for having to deal with these kinds of people. Which is why I am really excited to introduce what I call the Cellar Caste system. Not Cellarcast like this podcast, but cast like with an E at the end. Like a social cast, right? So here's the way that it works. Imagine a pyramid, and this represents the people in society as they relate to me and my channel, or channels. So at the very tippy top of the pyramid it's me. At the I'm actually floating above the pyramid. I'm like the sun. I'm the god emperor. Okay, I'm at the top. But the highest point that is achievable by a flesh and blood human being would be at the top of the cellar, the caste system, right? Is let's see, it would be like a $10 patron, sub to every channel, every single upload on all of them, comment, leaves good comments that are interesting and don't suck to read, hit that bell. And they tell everyone, they spread the word. Those people, they're in like the top echelon, right? That's the highest. That's what you can aspire to be, listener. you can aspire to be, I don't have a name for it yet, to be the peak. The peak of the Cellar experience. The Taigen Moon Cellar experience. Like, you're getting, like, I might even fly you out to my private island with, like, a weird temple on it that we can't talk about. Okay, that's what's in it for you. And then at the very bottom, of the barrel, the lowest rung on the ladder, is a guy who stumbled onto a Clips channel video and left, like, watched half of it and then left a comment about something that I never said. That guy's on the bottom. That's the untouchables. Everyone, like, stay away from them. They have to ring. They have to wear, like, cages on their heads and ring bells when they walk through town. Ka-ching, ka-ching, and everyone, like, and they go inside. And we stay away from those people. People who don't even know about my channel are actually on a higher tier than them because they have like a neutral effect to me. So this guy who commented, sorry buddy, but you're going to the bottom of the pyramid. All right, you're like a slave now. And I'm gonna have you build my next pyramid. Okay. That's what it's like. This is the end game of every single YouTuber, actually, is to be an authoritarian emperor. Is being an emperor inherently authoritarian? Is it? Not really. Not technically. So recently I started reading some of the original 1961 Fantastic Four comics. Because really a pro of nothing. I just sort of like old comics and stories from maybe not that period. I've always been like the most interested in like late Silver Age and Bronze Age Marvel comics specifically. To me, that's where a lot of the most interesting stories and the writing that I can really like get. That was like a real sweet spot. And I generally don't touch anything after like 1990. But I do have an affinity, an affection for, I guess, just like old kind of pulpy sci-fi adventure stories. And to me, that's what the Fantastic Four is. They're like the original science fiction adventuring family. At least for Marvel. For like Marvel comics. Superhero comics, as it will be. Well, there's a couple. I know there's a couple like acclaimed runs. I ended up just going with like, well, let's just start from the beginning because that'll be fun. I figured it would be the most interesting. Some people might consider them a little. I can definitely see someone reading them and thinking they're a little too old-fashioned. But for me, I'm not going to say that they're the most incredible thing ever. But wow, I am having a ball reading the original like 1960s Stan Lee, Jack Kirby run of the Fantastic Four, and they're interesting. I'm like maybe a dozen issues in, maybe 15, and so the origins of the Fantastic Four, like the way that they start out, I feel like a lot of people would be surprised. So here's one thing. The Thing, right? Okay, so The Thing. So, all right. You see how the characters... You can see that, like, there's a bunch of things in those early issues where Lee and Kirby are still kind of hammering out the details of how they want these characters to work and how they want them to look and what they're wearing. Like, they don't even get the costumes until like I think until like issue 3. And one really interesting example of this is The Thing, because for a while I've known for the longest time that The Thing Ben Grimm is Jewish. He is the most, I would say probably the most well-known Jewish superhero character, comic book character. And that, of course, came from, like, you know, the backgrounds of the, I believe I think it was Jack Kirby specifically. That the Thing has always been, I think it took a while for them to actually acknowledge it or to make it, like, canonical, but there's like this old, like, Christmas card or something that has him wearing, like, or it's like a Happy Holidays, and he's wearing like a yarmulke, I believe, and it's like, okay, yeah, people, it was one of those things that everyone, I think, at least in the business, like, a lot of people, like, knew, but it was just never, like, hard confirmed. And what I find really interesting is that I thought about it for a bit, and I was like, like, why was I'm gonna take 5 seconds of research. Okay, yeah, it was based on Kirby, and I was thinking, like, why was Jack Kirby so intent on the Thing being Jewish? Like, why this character specifically? Of all characters that it could have been, why him? And then it just struck me, it was so obvious. It's like, oh, the Thing is a golem. The golems are originate in Jewish folklore. They're a folklore creature. They're like a protector. They're a living statue of stone. And if you go look up Jewish golems and the way that they're traditionally depicted in, like, little statuettes and stuff, they're these big stocky characters with these rounded heads, like these sort of protruding rounded heads that actually kind of look a little bit more like the Juggernaut. That's how they're usually depicted, and that's what the Thing looks like in those first couple issues. That's what he looks like. He looks much closer to that design for a golem nowadays, and I can already see, like, it's a little bit inconsistent how Kirby draws him, but you know, he's kind of slowly taking on more of, like, a human shaped head and stuff. But originally, yeah, like, that's really, it feels really obvious to me now that he was totally designed after that, and that probably this was some folktale or, you know, creature concept that Kirby grew up with. He was very instrumental in the brainstorming for the Fantastic Four, and it was probably just something that he always thought was really cool, and he wanted to represent that in some way, like a living creature of stone that's a protector. I was like, oh, neat. Something else that's funny. So, Johnny, the Human Torch, in the first, like, 2 issues, he's drawn, every time he's got his flames on, Kirby goes in and, like, actually draws all of the separate, like, tongues of flame and stuff like that, and it looks like he's really, like, on fire. You can't see him at all. It's just like a human-shaped flame, essentially. And then by issue 3, you can tell that Kirby was just like, I'm not going to do that for every issue. And then he goes back to the look that you're probably used to seeing for the Human Torch, which is this sort of, like, red figure that is cloaked in, like, red or orangish fire, right? But you can see his actual figure inside. That's pretty funny. Details that they ended up hammering out. That's the word I was looking for. In, like, one of the issues, Mr. Fantastic goes, yeah, my suit, my superhero costume, it's made of unstable atoms that extend as I do. So they, like, it's just like it's like one size fits all, one size really fits. I'm in all. That's what his clothes are made out of. But in, like, you know, the first issue, before he has the outfit, you know, he's just wearing, like, blue jeans. He's just wearing blue jeans, and they're stretching along with him. And you just kind of got to go, oh, all right, well, you know, we're just going to ignore that. It's really interesting to see how even in these early issues, there are a lot of very iconic Fantastic Four / Marvel in general characters introduced. The very first issue is the Mole Man, which I think that, like, Mole Man has become sort of enshrined as this consistent kind of character over the years. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he was the first. It's a little coincidental. I think it has to do with the fact that he was the first Fantastic Four villain. So there's kind of a prestige given to this very silly little man. But even, oh my god, issue 2, the Skrulls, the first appearance of the Skrulls. Do you guys want to know? Okay, there is one of the most intriguing things about reading these comics is that when I say, like, storytelling was different back then, storytelling was different. Things will just they'll just kind of happen. Characters will do things that are like, whoa, like, because a lot of things are told in this sort of, I don't know, this sort of general, detached way. I think one of the things that I like about a lot of older comics like this is that, you can tell that writers like Stan Lee were really influenced by things like classic myths. Because when you read these stories, when you read these comics and the dialogue and the narration, it isn't just that, like, it's all sounds larger than life and everything like that. It's that it's told in this way that's almost detached, like you're hearing the legend of this story. Does that make sense? Nowadays you get a lot more, like, detail. You know, it's sort of expected that in the rhythm of storytelling, you see a character's reaction to something. You might see a little more in detail of just a little process that they go through of doing something. Like the Fantastic Four will drop in somewhere, and then the next panel will just be minutes later, and just, like, what could have been 2 or 3 pages of action we've just skimmed right over it, right? Because you're just hearing about it, right? From like a distance. In a way that's, like, a little disorienting, in a way that almost feels like you're sort of fudging it. Like, how do we get this to happen? Let's just draw. How do we get from point A to point B? Let's just, I don't know. Just draw point B. Nothing in between. Don't show the process of them doing anything, like untying a captive or going somewhere. We're just there now. We're here now. The characters are doing a thing because that's what the plot demands. I don't know if they were using the Marvel method at this point. I don't know when that came into use. For those who don't know, the Marvel method was this process for making comics where essentially the writer would come up with an outline of the plot, like a basic outline of what was supposed, like all the major story beats. And then the artist would just draw it. They would just draw panels with no script. And then later, after the art was all done, the writer would then go in and fill in the dialogue and what's being said. And they just had to work with what the artist came up with, which I've heard people say that that's crazy. I've heard people defend that, but that was how they did it for quite a while. I don't know if they were using that method at this point, but I can definitely see it. Like, I can definitely see the artist going, like, looking at the outline. It's like, okay, we're doing this, and then we're over here. All right, I guess we're over here now. because they don't know all of the little details maybe that a script writer might include. And then the dialogue just accounts for that, and the narration just goes, well, minutes later, this scene is happening. You want to hear about the scrolls. So the scrolls' first appearance, right? They're like these shape-shifting aliens. They do something that I am certain happens probably a bunch of times throughout the course of this run, which is the Fantastic Four are being framed. The scrolls are impersonating them and framing them for crimes. And now everyone hates the Fantastic Four, and they have to figure out what's going on and how to stop it. So eventually, we go through this whole thing. They capture the four scrolls who were pretending to be them. They find out that there's a scroll invasion that's hovering over the earth. They pretend to be the scrolls in disguise, just as themselves, and go all the way up to the ship, and they're like, Commander Scroll guy, you can't invade Earth. They're too powerful. Look. And Mr. Fantastic shows them drawings, images that he says he just took from another Marvel, like a Journey into Mystery and Strange Tales, which were just other Marvel comics at the time. And the Scroll Guy's like, oh no, oh my god, we have to go now. And they're like, actually, we'll stay behind on Earth for whatever reason. And he's like, you're so noble. Goodbye. We'll never be back again. Which is a lie. And then the Fantastic Four go back down, and they're like, all right. Oh, wait. We forgot. What do we do with these scrolls that we captured? And Mr. Fantastic's solution to this problem of having these, like, really powerful, dangerous aliens on their planet who are going to stop at nothing. And, like, they can't kill them, right? I think there was, like, a thing against killing at this time. Not enforced, but maybe you just kind of get the sense that they weren't really... The writing, the mood of the time at the company probably wasn't like, let's just fucking kill them. You know, that's not heroic or whatever. We have to just capture them, but we can't capture them because they're always going to be able to escape with their scroll shape-shifting powers. So here's Mr. Fantastic's solution. He hypnotizes them into transforming into cows and leaves them just to pasture. And he's just like, I know what to do. This was justice. And you think about it for like 5 seconds and you go, what the fuck, dude? Hang on, what? Are you wait, those are like living, thinking beings. Those are people. And you just, you hypnotized them into turning into animals and just kind of left them there. And I looked this up. I was like, okay, here's the thing. If I was given the task of writing a new Fantastic Four book or some kind of story, the first thing I would do is go back to these fucking scroll cows. And I looked it up, and yep, they have absolutely come back. And I think they actually made it more horrifying by including the details that in the time since they turned into the cows, they've actually bred. They've bred with other real cows and had horrifying scroll cow, like, cross mutant babies. What the fuck, Mr. Fantastic? I saw someone online say that the Fantastic Four, like the early Fantastic Four, reads a lot better when you picture Mr. Fantastic as being like kind of a piece of shit and not actually being like a super heroic dude. Because he's just willing to do crazy stuff like that sometimes. Characters' emotions and their motives will just shift. They'll just turn on a dime. Like, all of a sudden, at the end of an issue, Johnny is like, I'm sick of taking orders from you guys. I hate you. I never want to see you again. I fucking hate you guys so much. When, like, nothing bad really even happened to him. And then he, like, runs off. And there's, like, this whole story where he runs into Namor, the Submariner. And he who has, like, lost his memory. And Johnny helps him regain his memory. And then Namor finds out that his whole underwater civilization has been destroyed by, like, nuclear bombing, by nuclear testing, because, like, political commentary, I guess. And he gets so fucking mad that he takes out a horn, like a big conch horn, and wakes up this gigantic whale monster called Giganto, and has it rampage through New York and almost obliterates the whole city. And the only way they stop it is by the Thing grabbing a nuclear bomb and running into the whale's mouth, and then, like, setting the bomb off and almost dying because he almost gets caught in the explosion. And, like, all of that happens, and then in the very next issue, Sue Storm, the Invisible Girl, is just like, oh, that Namor. But he's so angry, but maybe I think I could fix him. She is really like, I can fix it. He's just tortured. I'm like, oh my God. No, don't do this. Don't write her like this. It is so weird. Like, Sue, when the story begins, Sue and Reed are already engaged. They're already fiancés. And the Thing will just openly talk about how he wants to bang Sue. About how he wishes that she was in love with him. With everyone in the room. And, like, no one has a real reaction to this. It doesn't cause any tension. It leads to nothing. You don't even get a reaction from Reed Richards, hearing that his apparent friend wants to steal his fiancée away from him. No response. At all. It is so weird. It's so weird. Do you guys want to know what the first Doctor Doom story is? He shows up in, like, issue 5. Really early into the comic, right? He shows up by issue 5. Here's the first Doctor Doom story. Fantastic Four is chilling out in their big old tower when suddenly Doctor Doom in a helicopter flies over the Doomcopter, flies over their headquarters and drops a big net on it and is like, Fantastic Four, give me Sue Storm as a hostage. Because the net is, like, electrified and made of asbestos, so the Human Torch can't burn through it. And they're like, all right, I guess we'll give you Sue. And then she's in, like, his helicopter, and then Doom goes, no, the rest of you too for hostages. And they're like, okay. All right then. I guess it was to separate Sue because she doesn't have any real, like, fighting powers. To use her as leverage. I guess that was the intent. So he flies, he puts them in, like, a big bird cage. It's hanging off of his fucking Doomcopter. He flies them over to his castle, which is not in Latveria. I almost said Latvia. It's not in Latveria. It's just somewhere. You rarely, if ever, you're lucky if you get any kind of, like, location. If they tell you, like, where anything is taking place. They just happen in, scenes. So he's got Sue captive, and he tells the other three, here's what I need from you guys. I have invented a time travel device. I'm going to send you back to the 1800s, and I want you to steal Blackbeard's treasure. This is the first thing that he does in the comic. This is his first evil plan. he wants to steal Blackbeard's treasure because it includes gems that were blessed by the wizard Merlin. And he's going to use it for some kind of evil plot. So he gives them 48 hours, which is that how time does that work in time travel? To go back in time. And so they go there. They're like in I don't know, the Caribbean. I don't know where they're supposed to be. They're just in a pirate story now, and they grab like pirate disguises to blend in, like Back to the Future, but 20 years earlier. Probably earlier than that. God, probably almost like 30 years earlier. And they go on this whole adventure where they go to a pub, they go to like a tavern, and they get roofied and forced to be part of some pirate crew, and then they fight the crew, and the crew is like, oh my god, they have these magic powers, they're cursed. Let's just do what they say. So they see another ship, and Reed goes, the thing goes, do you think it's Blackbeard? And they're like, why? Maybe. Why not? Let's go just attack them. So they all board the ship and have this crazy, epic, awesome fight. And they pull up this treasure chest. They pull up a treasure chest, and they're like, this must be Blackbeard's treasure. And then the pirates are like, oh my god, the Thing, that guy, he's such an incredible pirate fighter. We will call... Okay, here's the important thing. The Thing's disguise, he's wearing like an eye patch and a black beard. I don't know I forgot where they got the beard from. I guess just like a party city. And the pirates are like, we will call him Blackbeard. And in the span of one panel, they realize that the legend of Blackbeard is actually about the Thing that originated during this time travel plot. And that in the present, before they even got sent back in time, it was, and they were, when they, growing up hearing legends of Blackbeard the pirate was actually about the Thing who was going to time travel from the future to the past and fought really good that one time. And canonically, in the Marvel universe, Blackbeard is just the Thing who time traveled. I am really curious. Do they keep those rules for time travel? Because, in like a Back to the Future, because we just mentioned it, in a Back to the Future, the way that they do it is, everything's the same, but then when you time travel back to change something, then things will be altered when you go forward. You'll go forward to like a different future. They introduced that like, oh, you make a fork in the road in the timeline. You split the timelines. Does time travel continue to work like that in Marvel Comics, where every effect of time travel has already happened? And that would be weird. That's like a much weirder thing. Like, you would just have to accept that, like, you're going to open a history book and see a drawing or a painting of yourself, and you just go, oh fuck, okay, I guess I gotta do that eventually. It is so weird. It's fun though. They're fun. I'm just making my way through them. They're an enjoyable, very campy read. Did I have anything else to mention from those first like batch of issues? I don't know. It's a lot of fun. I would recommend it. Just go read old comics, because they will rewrite the rules for what you thought was possible or acceptable in a story. it is like I never have any idea what is going to happen. The rules are so loosey-goosey. It's great. It's honestly a lot of fun. I want to talk about a big announcement for me and no one else. Bleach Rebirth of Souls announced very recently at some sort of Bandai Namco showcase thing. So I haven't talked about it in a while. I don't think I really talk about Bleach unless Prox is on the podcast. He hasn't been on here in a while. But I am a fan of Bleach, and I say that with pride. I say that with my chest out, that I like Bleach, and I think it is overhated. I think it's overhated. It certainly has flaws, and I could go in on those, but I do like the manga and the anime quite a bit. Well, I say the anime with caveats, like the filler and all that, because, you know, besides the point. Bleach has not had a real, like, big console game in a while. It's a bit of a bummer liking Bleach, because you look at people, you know, like Naruto, Dragon Ball. I guess One Piece doesn't get games very often. But you look at those other series, and they get, like, wasn't there just a new Naruto game or something? And there's that Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Like, if you're a Dragon Ball fan, you never run out of shit, right? You will never run out. There's Dragon Ball Fighters if you want, like, a real, like, you know, team tag thing. There's that Kakarot game that's like an adventure game take. There was a goddamn, like, survival game. Remember that? Dragon Ball The Breakers? There's like a Dragon Ball survival game. And then Sparking Zero, of course, which is like, those games are just like fan service. Those games are just, they get by entirely on, you like Dragon Ball, and we're going to shove as much Dragon Ball into this thing as possible. Is the gameplay deep? No. It is just supposed to look cool, and there's special interactions and what-if scenarios, and that's the whole point. The whole point is just to look cool and make and get your, like, Dragon Ball fanboyism tingling. It's like, okay, fair enough. And Bleach gets nothing like that. Bleach gets nothing like that. There's, like, some mobile games, you know. There's, like, a gacha game that I played back in high school. So it's really exciting, genuinely exciting, to see some kind of treatment for it. To get some kind of treatment, nice treatment, with a real full-on console game. This was leaked, or there were rumors of a Bleach console game a while ago that I was, you know, I had my eye on. But it finally got a trailer, which shows off almost none of the actual game. So, trailer comes out. It's Bleach Resurrection of Souls. And you look at the gameplay, and you immediately see 3D stages and looks like 3D movement and stuff. Good looking character model. Honestly, visually, this game looks pretty nice. This looks like a pretty good interpretation of the anime's style and Kubo's style, the way he does backgrounds and stuff. The colors, especially, I think they actually got really good. Bleach has always had, like, in my opinion, one of the strongest elements is just, like, its mood and its atmosphere, and the aesthetic. The trailer is hyper aesthetic. Jesus Christ, like, you can barely tell what's going on. There's so many transitions and so much text and garbage all over the screen, but I liked it. But you look at the footage, and it's a 3D. It looks like a 3D arena fighter, and you go, "Oh no, really? We waited so long. And we're just gonna get some schlocky garbage 3D arena fighter." And I'm here to say, hang on. I'm here to say, hold the phone. Because if you look at the developer, I didn't realize there was a Steam. There's already a Steam page up for it. There was one up like the day of the announcement. It's being developed by Tamsoft Corporation. You might not be familiar with Tamsoft, but you might have heard of some of the games that they've worked on. So most recently, I guess most notably, is they did some support for Melty Blood Type Lumina. I think they just did the PC port, which was not an amazing port, but yeah, it's not like the most notable thing. They also developed, let me see, I should have pulled this at Tamsoft Games. They seem like a lot of their things are not quite like, okay. They made Battle Arena Toshinden. Were they the primary? Yep, they were the primary developers. It had a DOS version. They were the primary devs of Battle Arena Toshinden, but that was in 1995. Okay, cut them some slack. They did all the Toshinden games actually. Toshinden Subaru. That must have been the kart racer spinoff. Har har. They did Hello Kitty Bowling. All right, so there's a lot of fighting game experience here. They have a weird development history. They worked on Fortune Street. Did they make Fortune Street? Do you remember Fortune Street? That was that Mario, Nintendo X Dragon Quest Mario Party game. That was weird. Developed by Various. Huh. They made specifically the PS2 version. Okay. Wait, what? Oh. Is this like a series? It's a series. What the hell? I didn't know about that. Wow, I'm learning a lot. Maybe I should have done Whoa, okay. They have a game called Taxi Rider. I almost thought it was Taxi Driver for a sec. I was like, okay, that's a change of pace. Okay, here's where we get into the actual relevant stuff. They worked on One Chanbara and Senran Kagura as they are the developers of One Chanbara. Full title, One Chanbara Bikini Zombie Slayers. And what do they do on Senran Kagura? Yep, they are the primary developers of Senran Kagura Burst, and it looks like a couple other ones. They might just be Shinobi Versus. I remember that one. Yep, that's them. Okay. So, and also a couple, looks like Hyperdimension Neptunia games. So, they aren't actually completely out of their element. Now, as I understand it, One Chanbara and Senran Kagura are sort of in that Dead or Alive category where people write them off as being sort of trashy, just there, you're just playing it for the tits and stuff. But according to fans, according to people who actually play them, are pretty well made games with decent depth in their mechanics and stuff. So I was looking up the most recent One Chanbara game. Chaos, was it called? One of them. Yeah. Oh no, sorry. One Chanbara Origin. And I was looking up the most negative reviews of it. It actually reviewed pretty okay. The most negative reviews were basically just talking about how the game just sort of lacked, it wasn't worth the price. Which, fair. It didn't have enough content to justify it. Fair critique for a review outlet to make, in my opinion. But hey, if they've got Bandai as the publisher, and they're working with a much bigger IP, and they actually have a budget to put into content and stuff, and they take their experience from making those other games. I'm not saying it's like 100% good, you know, fair weather ahead, but I am saying, you know, don't throw in the towel just yet. Let's not jump to conclusions. I do have some hope, right? I am curious as to how much of the story it actually covers. They showed off a little less than 10 characters. Ichigo, Rukia, Chad, Uryu, Renji, and Byakuya. I have to imagine Orihime is also probably playable. And content-wise, like of the arcs that it covers, it's at least through the Soul Society. But here's the weird part. Okay, I mentioned that you know, you can't see very much gameplay in this trailer. Like, so the most gameplay you get of what the game actually kind of looks like is 3 seconds of footage of Ichigo in his Bankai form fighting Byakuya on like the Hill of Executions or whatever they call it from like the end of the Soul Society arc. So at first I thought, okay, well, they're just going up through Soul Society. But like, if you're gonna adapt the manga, it's kind of weird in your reveal trailer to show what would ostensibly be the final boss. Like, that is the last fight of that is the Ichigo versus Byakuya is like the climax of that arc. It's like one of the most legendary moments from Bleach, of him going Bankai and fighting Byakuya with his power up and all that. Like that is Bleach's like Super Saiyan 1 moment, right? That's like a classic. I love that sequence. And it's kind of weird to, like, obviously, of course, like most people who are buying it or who are even interested in the Bleach game probably already know that, right? It's just weird to like show off what the last boss of your game is in the trailer, like the fight and stuff, which leads me to believe, I don't know what. Maybe they're going to actually cover more of the manga. Maybe this is going to be focused more on being like a versus thing. Because I mean, oh my god, it just from like that first arc, or those first 2 arcs, you have so many characters. You get to like the Gote 13, and it's like 30 characters total who are involved in that. Like for a fighting game. Like, who would you want? So they've got, you know, the ones who are already in there, you know, from like the Gote, Renji and Byakuya. I imagine Byakuya is also playable. You gotta have Kenpachi. You gotta have like Mayuri or something, right? You have to have him in some form, right? He's too popular. I think he's like Kubo's favorite character. Oh, you should probably have Gin. You should have. Would you have Aizen? Would you have like Soul Society era Aizen? Would you do pre-Blood War Unohana? Would you do I gotta rack. Oh, you gotta have Soifon. Oh, you gotta have Yoruichi. We know is playable. Oh, you have to do Kisuke. Like there are so many Bleach characters, and so many of them are like required. Like, you need them to be playable, that are just locked in there before you even get into like, it would be cool to have like Kira. I think Kira is cool. I'm gonna be a little pissed if like Ikaku is in there. I don't I literally have to look at a pic. Oh, you gotta have Shunsui. I love Shunsui. Shunsui's so sick. Oh, you have to have Hitsugaya. Right? Like, there's so many characters. There's so many characters in Bleach who are like, you gotta have them in there. Oh, you gotta have them in there. Yeah, honestly, maybe the more that I'm talking about it, the more I'm running through it in my head, the more I realize I think you could just do a whole fighting game roster, like a healthy big ass fighting game roster, just using up to through Soul Society, without even having to dip into, I don't know, like Momo or something. You could, every member of the Gotei 13 could be playable, or something like that. At least like some of the vice captains. A lot of them, a couple of them don't fight until way later in the manga. Like there's a build up to them fighting. Like, oh my god, you're gonna have, you know, oh my neck. Yeah. So I looked. The Steam page is interesting because it has more information in the form of animated GIFs. Thank you, Steam page. That show off a little bit more gameplay. Nothing about real mechanics. They say something about like defeat enemies with a single strike. I don't know what that means. It looks like there's some kind of Rukia does this. It looks like two characters. They show it with Rukia and they show it with Uryu, where like Rukia like hits Renji, and then there's like this yellow like tear like crack on him, and then she hits him again with a spell, and then he like takes some kind of big critical hit, and then Uryu does something similar with like arrows. Some kind of comeback mechanic they're talking about. The more desperate the situation, the more powerful you become. So the thing about making a Bleach game, like a Bleach fighting game, is that you have to build... installs are just a part of the game. They just need to be. Every single Bleach character, it like transformations. One of the reasons Bleach is so fucking cool is that it takes that like, oh, transforming is cool, like from Dragon Ball, and it just makes it like a completely built-in part of the setting. Literally every single character has like multiple forms and powers that they go through. Every Soul Reaper has like 3 different tiers of power. They have like the base, they have the Shikai and the Bankai. The Arrancar get like the Resurrection forms. The Quincy's have their own thing, I'm forgetting. Everyone... What are the Fullbringers? The Fullbringers are all weird. Everyone gets something like that. So you have to build some sort of... Because you're not gonna do the Dragon Ball Fighters thing. God forbid. And you make like every single form that Ichigo gets like a different version. Like, oh my god, are you gonna fucking do the 5 seconds of the manga where he had like 2 swords for a bit? Is that gonna be its own form too? Are you gonna separate the full-bring Shikai and full-bring Bankai into their own thing? I like those designs a lot. I wish full-bring Bankai stayed around for longer. It just gets rewritten immediately. I think it looks really cool. I think it's a great update to the look. Like, are you gonna do that? I hope not. Just make it build it into the system, right? I'm looking forward to finding out more information. I had to add that at the very end. I'm looking forward to finding out more information. Because, am I still interested? Yeah, like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, you put, like, a nice-looking game like this with characters that I love in it. What am I gonna say, right? Am I gonna say, drink some Crystal Light to keep me going, to power through, get all those electrolytes. There's no electrolytes. It's just like a fucking water flavor. It's just tap water. So Kat and I, okay. So you might have realized, it's still ongoing as I'm recording this, the Steam summer sale is happening. So I went and I picked up a bunch of games. A bunch of games, actually. I picked up, let's see, what did I pick up? I picked up Left 4 Dead 2 because I want to play that. I might stream that with Prox on his channel in the future because it was like $1. Oh my god. Left 4 Dead 2. I picked up Hitman World of Assassination, which is actually it's actually 3 games. It's like the first 3 Hitman games plus like the new online competitive thing that they've got. I don't know what that's about, but it's practically 4 games in one package, right? That was super cheap. I picked up this indie RPG that I was looking at for a bit that looks really funny and weird called Hylic. And I got Arkham Origins, which is a game that I just finished this morning. I'm going to talk about it later on. And all told, for all of that, right? Games I'm interested in, that I think are cool looking, I spent about $10 all told, $10, $11 for what will be hours, maybe hundreds of hours of entertainment and interesting experiences. Over the weekend, I spent more than that on a ticket for Despicable Me 4. Because Kat really wanted to go see it. like I was dude, it was like $12.50. It was $12.50 for a matinee on like a Saturday, no, Friday. On like a Friday, fucking $12.50 for a matinee. We went to go see it at like 2 or 4, something like that. We didn't go see it like early in the afternoon. And I'm just thinking about it. I'm like, man, movie theaters are so fucked. Movie theaters are so fucked. I'm sitting there. It wasn't even air conditioned, right? We're going through like a big heat wave. They didn't even air condition the theater. I'm sitting there. I paid $12.50 for a matinee of Despicable Me 4. I'm in the theater baking. Thinking about like what's going on in my life right now. Thinking about the world, dude. The election. That's where my thoughts are. Watching the Minions. I kind of struggle to come up with things to talk about in regards to Despicable Me 4. I feel like this comes up pretty often where Kat and I go, she takes me to see a baby movie and I just go, yeah, I don't know, it's like a baby movie. It's fine. I feel like this one in particular is a little, the most interesting thing about it is that it might be, so she liked this movie, which kind of astounds me. She said it was better than Kung Fu Panda 4, and I can't bring myself to hate Awkwafina that much. This is like the most, it's like the most phoned in script I've seen in forever. It's such a weird movie to think about because it's so unimpressive on its face, but I started thinking about it more and like how the plot actually works and how it's structured, and it's like, whoa, what? Wow, like I get kind of lightheaded. So first things first, there are 2 jokes in the movie with setups. There are 2 jokes in the movie that have an actual setup and a payoff. Everything else is just a payoff. It's just a thing happens and they jingle keys in front of your baby's face, or in my case, my girlfriend's face, and they laugh and they go, whoa, whoa. So much so that and these jokes happen at the very end of the movie. They happen at the very tail end, and it was like being brought back to life. I felt like Neo coming out of like the pod in the Matrix when I'm like covered in like goop and shit. I'm like my head's bald. I'm like like all my nerve endings hurt because I'm in the real world for the first time. Like it jolted my brain to life. Like, oh my god, whoa, wait, I remember that. Hang on, I had to use my brain to recall things for 1 second to recall something earlier in the movie. This movie has like 4 different plots going on. It's like, the premise is okay. It's like, okay, Gru has to go into witness protection. So the whole family relocates. And then the minions, for some reason, can't go along except for like a couple of them. So they go off and they have this weird superhero plot line that is like, it's like Captain America, but then some of them are the Fantastic Four, and then some of them are just like have generic superpowers. And that whole Minion storyline has like wolf guy pacing, in that stuff you just slam into the next part. Like there is so little time to actually go in and give that plot any amount of like time to develop, that they just go, okay, now we're doing this. Now we're doing this. Now we're doing this. And it exists very transparently to keep the children in the audience engaged. Because none of them care about Gru and his dumbass family. These movies have been going on for so long, I forgot that Miranda Cosgrove is in them. When those started, she was like a teenager, right? Like she was like a teenager or something, doing like iCarly when that first movie came out. Now she's like a grown-ass woman. She's a grown woman who's had like a stalker set himself on fire in her backyard. Look that up. That's a crazy story. And she's still playing like this little girl character. So there's this whole thing at home with like all the different family members trying to start these new lives while they're in witness protection. And when I say that none of the jokes have any setups, so the mom, right, she's like a hairdresser, and the client, it's like, okay, there's a mishap when she's hairdressing and it results in a big disaster. Okay, that's the idea. So what's our jokes for the scene? She's applying the product to the hair and all that, and then it starts like smoking and steaming, and she is somehow, there's no like explanation, there's no setup for it. It's just this combination of things in the hair salon happen to make your hair fall out. And then she spills water on a light bulb. Like they have these big vanity mirrors, right, with light bulbs that kind of surround them. She spills water on a light bulb, and it causes the light bulb to pop, like explode. And then for some reason, every other light bulb also explodes. I guess they're on the same power grid or something. And it's meant to be like funny or wacky or slapstick or something. And it just kind of ends up being like a, what? Oh, okay. All right. There's no like setup of like an expectation and then, whoa, actually we did this thing. Or there's no tension of you see her grab the bottle that's labeled this thing and she's not paying attention. And you're like, oh no. There's like nothing, like things just happen. Like it's not even the most minute of setup to anything. It's just stuff happens. There is like this whole, it feels like there are plot lines. There are like the ghosts of plot lines in the movie. Like Gru picks up his Miranda Cosgrove daughter from school, from like middle school or high school or something. And she's been like bummed the whole movie because she's going she doesn't want to move away, which is like a normal thing. She's having her inside out moment. And he picks her up from school, and like the kids put a fucking glitter bomb like in her locker, which is like really mean. And nothing ever happens with this storyline. There is literally a single scene of she's getting bullied at school. Nothing ever comes of that. Nothing happens related to it. It isn't like, oh, Gru has to help her get it isn't, I don't know, it's so weird. It's like the film has like no real heart. I remember that first movie being pretty decent. I remember being pretty decent, especially for the time, you know? And the thing about that film was that the girls and Gru were really like the heart of that movie. It was all about their relationship and him learning how to be a dad, and that he actually kind of likes it, and that it's actually like really fulfilling for him, and it's nice, and he actually he has a change of heart over the course of the film. And that relationship was the heart. That was the heart of the movie. And now the heart of the movie is the minions making fart noises. And whatever sort of family dynamic or anything like that, any kind of emotions like that, have been supplanted by the incredible consumerist mascots of the minions. This is yeah, kind of a depressing film to watch from that perspective. Oh, there's this fucking weird plot line where Joey King, who you might recognize as the girl from Wish Upon, is playing like a little girl who lives next door, and she knows Gru's identity. Maybe because he walks around with like a bathrobe that has his logo on it, and she like blackmails him. I'm like spinning my chair around, so if you hear like, I'm not like farting all the time. If you hear like weird creaking noises, she like blackmails him because she wants to be a villain too, and is like doing a heist. She wants to pull off a heist at the villain school that Gru went to steal like their mascot. And also there's like a cockroach villain who was Gru's like bully in high school, who wants revenge on him because at the beginning of the movie he gets Gru like is the reason that he gets arrested, and there's just too much going on. It has no focus, it has no real emotional center. There is no time for them to set things up. It's just kind of like a bleak picture of what happens when someone is asked to write a script and they really, really don't want to put in the effort. I give it a 3 out of 10. I'm bringing in review scores for this movie only. Gets a 3 out of 10. Yeah. Kids will like it. Well, it will keep them entertained because they have no standards. It will keep your girlfriend entertained because sometimes I look at Katrina and I can't believe that this is the same woman who says that one of her favorite movies is Before Sunrise. Like, it really baffles me that same person I can then look at her in the theater after Despicable Me 4 and she says, I liked it. It's really, there are some magical, mystical things going on in her mind that I'm not privy to. And one day I hope to unlock them. Maybe through the power of hypnotism. And she'll like speak in tongues and shit. And I'll be like, oh, this is fun. I don't know who the fuck I started dating. I beat Arkham Origins this morning, and I got some thoughts on it. So I beat it. Haven't 100. I'll probably go back in and 100% it like I've done with the previous 2 games. When I say 100%ing, I don't. I did that with Arkham City. I did not do it with like the Arkham City DLC add-on stuff. Like, I'm not going to do all the missions and all the Riddler challenges, like, at a certain point. I checked a couple of them out. You know, I checked out the other playable characters. Thought that they were cool, but I'm not going to put all the main game stuff and the Harley Quinn's Revenge. Here's the funny thing about the Harley Quinn's Revenge for Arkham, the DLC for Arkham City. Sometimes it just doesn't work. Did you know that on PC, there's a bug that's been known about since the game release, where sometimes you boot up, you try to start the Harley Quinn's Revenge DLC, and it just loads forever? It just hangs up there forever? And it is like, there is no way to fix it. There's no way to fix it. It's like bound to, it's some kind of corrupted save data. It might have been my fault because I accidentally started it once and was like, oh shit, I didn't mean to start that and I can't skip the cut. I'm just going to like force quit the application. And then when I actually got around to doing it, it just wouldn't load. It just wouldn't start. So which meant that I had to do it on a fresh save file. Thankfully, you don't have to like beat the game again or anything like that to play through it. I would have just skipped it if that was the case. So you can just start it from a fresh save. However, all of the upgrades that you have in the DLC are the same as the ones from the base game. For some reason, they've tied them in. Which is really annoying. And it meant that I had to do the entire DLC, which is only like 2 hours or something. I had to do the entire DLC with none of the extremely useful upgrades. So I didn't have the special takedown, like group takedown, which is I didn't have the weapon destruction special. I didn't have a bunch of the upgrades to the gadgets that are really useful. I didn't have a lot of things. And man, I didn't have any of the health or armor upgrades. And man, do you feel it? Are there parts of the game where you really feel it? There's like a fight where they straight up throw, like, it has to be like 30 guys at you. There's like 2 titans in there. And I did that whole thing with like the base move set. I can't believe it. That was, it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but goddamn. So that was that. I think Robin was cool in that. I kind of wish he got more time, or he got like a bigger part of the game. I thought his gameplay was cool, even though it's mostly just, Batman, but with a couple little differences. I really like the voice actor and the performance for Robin. Started up and played through Arkham Origins in about 4 days. And it's an interesting, okay. Arkham Origins, all I remember hearing was no one ever really talks about that game. They talk about Asylum. They'll talk about City. They'll talk about Night. I definitely remember Night being a big topic of discussion when it came out and how people were not happy with it. But I don't really remember Origins that much. In fact, it's so forgotten, they forgot to put it in the bundle of all the Arkham games that I got the rest of the series in. So, Origins is a game that, at the start, it really grabbed me. It really piqued my interest. Like, they had me. And then along the way, they kind of lost me. And then the game kept going, and they kind of won me back again. So, let's talk about it, I guess. This is obviously a full spoiler thing. So, Arkham Origins is, as the title would suggest, an origin story. Kind of, sort of, Video game sequels just tag Origins onto shit. Origins and Revelations. Those are the two Those are the two video game sequel. That's like the video game equivalent of, you know, Electric Boogaloo or something like that. Excuse me. Except Electric Boogaloo was used by one movie. So Origins is it's not even a year 1 Batman. It's a year 2 Batman story. It's an early days of Batman kind of story, which I like. I think that those are neat. There is a really cool aspect to this game where, you know, in the previous games, everyone knows Batman already. So when he shows up, they go, it's the Bat. It's the freaking Bat. And they do that, right? But in this game, no one really knows who you are yet. There's like, it's like Batman's kind of an urban myth, right? I mean, crazy shit goes on in Gotham. You hear that there's some bat-looking guy going around. Maybe you see a shadow flying through the city at night. And you think, well, yeah, maybe, you know. So there's these kind of cool, I really like the dynamic of Batman throws open a door and he's standing on, you know, he comes out on this platform that's above, you know, it's sort of raised platform, and you can see your silhouette cast across the floor, and some thugs look over and their reaction isn't, it's the Batman, get him. Their reaction is, what the fuck is that? And they are genuinely freaked out by him. That persists because, again, like the other games, this all takes place on one night. So that persists. That persists throughout the game. And that's just a thing I find really fun, personally. Of Batman as like this sort of unknown, scary thing who people, you know, civilians are scared of him. They don't know who he is, right? They talk like, oh, it's like a criminal or something. Like, don't hurt me, like that kind of thing. I like that dynamic that he has, that he's still like really, he's fear, you know, he's embodying fear. So that's cool. So the premise of Origins is really cool. It takes place, it's Christmas Eve in Gotham City. And Black Mask, who is a more minor Batman villain, like a masked gang leader kind of guy, has put out a hit on Batman. And he's enlisted 8 different assassins, 8 of the DC Universe's greatest assassins, to take Batman out. And Batman... There's a very funny conversation at the start where Alfred says, well, you know, they don't know you're Bruce Wayne. So you could just like stay home for the night. Because it's like he wants him before Christmas Day or something. You could just stay home for the night and like not go out. And Batman raises a good counterpoint, which is that they're going to put civilians in danger to draw him out. He already knows this is going to happen, and he's going to head out to try and get ahead of it. So, okay, cool. All right, I'm on board. I really like the idea that we're dealing mostly with kind of smaller scale, not like super criminals for the most part. Well, there are like a couple of them are, but it's mostly like a lot of like martial artists. It's a smaller scale story, despite the fact that the world is like twice as big as the previous game, or almost twice as big. And so if you're listening to this and you've played this game, you already know where I'm going. So there's a twist, which is that, okay, so let me just talk about my experience with the game. You go through, and first of all, Batman's trying to find Black Mask. He doesn't want to deal with this shit. He wants to find Black Mask and just get him behind bars, right? And call the whole thing off. So he goes to like find the penguin because the penguin can tell him yada yada the information that he wants. And he runs into one of the hitmen, one of the assassins, just there, the Electrocutioner, which I'm not sure if he's like an existing guy from the comics or something, but he's like a bargain bin shocker, which that's like a really mean thing to say. I'm sorry, Electrocutioner fans, but he is a bargain bin shocker. And I was like, all right, cool. So I was expecting the game to sort of play out in like a No More Heroes, Scott Pilgrim, the movie, sort of structure, where you're going to get strung along between these various different assassins, and that's going to make up let's say a bulk of the game's story. And then you hit Electrocutioner one time, and he just fucking crumples. He just sucks ass. He blows. I was like, oh, all right. Sure. So you go like confront the penguin escapes, and then you just you walk out, and Deathstroke is just standing there. He's just standing there, and he's like, time to fight. So, okay, well, we're moving a lot faster than I thought we were. And there's two things. Number one, there's a negative and a positive. The negative is, man, they blow Deathstroke way too early. Like, it's kind of disappointing. Everyone thinks he's cool. He's such like a popular character. And to have him be essentially the first real boss fight of the game is sort of a disappointment. Like, I wish there was more of a build up to him, because I don't know. I just wish they'd done more justice to the character rather than him going down in the first 2 hours of the game. So that's the negative. The positive is, what the fuck? Are you telling me were you guys just lying? Like, okay. The first two games, I talked about this before in depth. I said, yeah, the developers seem to have trouble designing boss fights because the combat system is really designed around group battles. And in my head, it was hard to come up with like a solution for that. And then you play the Deathstroke fight, and it's like, oh, it's like a cool, fun boss fight that uses a bunch of different parts of the combat system. And there's like no new mechanics in it. When I say that, I mean like they didn't come up with anything new. They didn't come up with like, here's a different system that we'll use specifically for one-on-one fights. No. Not at all. It is this. It's strike, counter, dodge, use your gadgets. That's the fight. And it's fun and it's cool, right? It's definitely easy. It's easy. But it's a lot of like watching a cool animation happen, but it's like, oh, I can see the mechanics. I can see the vision here of like, no, okay. The Batman combat is like a rhythm game. It's a rhythm game with a bunch of variants and stressful factors added in. Like, that's how it works. So it makes sense that for a boss fight, you would just make them a difficult rhythm. You have to hit the counter at a specific timing, you know? You have to use a certain gadget to interact with them. You gotta use the grapple hook to pull his staff away from him. Right? You gotta use your gadgets in creative ways. Maybe you have to use the environment. And then, of course, you punch him a bunch, right? Like, and you put it together, and it's like a cool boss fight, and it works. I like it. And it's like, what? You could have done this the whole time? This game, remember how I said the Mr. Freeze fight was really good in City? This game probably has, I think Ryan left a comment about how this game has the best boss fights. No, it probably does. I don't know how they expand on this in Arkham Knight, But this game has the best boss fights of the series so far, and they're good. They're really good. Good. Claps. You guys did it. You did it. So then a bunch of stuff happens, and I hit a certain point in the game, and I'm like, man, I really thought I would be fighting those assassins. I really thought I would be doing more stuff with that, and we just kind of knocked out 2 of them, like, immediately. There's 6 left. I'm not doing a lot of assassin stuff. And then I go out and I find a little thing that starts a side quest with one of the assassins, and I'm like, oh, she's a side quest. Okay. All right. Would have been cool. It would have been cool maybe to have her be part of the main story, seeing as she is she's in the main story, like in the setup portion. But okay. And there's a long enough stretch of time where I'm doing stuff that is not related to what I thought was cool about the setup. That, like, they really sold me on, like, here's all the assassins. Here's all these cool hitmen characters. And they're all coming for you. And I'm like, oh, cool, I'm actually hyped for this. And then you're just not doing that for a while. And then you hit the big reveal. Black Mask. Oh, no, okay. Okay, so here's another positive about the game. You go to, like, Black Mask's whatever, like his safe house, and there's like there's like 2 dead bodies. And they expanded on the detective mode stuff in a really cool way. The crime scene investigation segments in this game are so cool. This got introduced all the way back in Arkham Asylum, where at certain points in time, Batman, you would go into like he would say, I need to set up a crime scene, and then you would go into like a first person mode and scan evidence, and then it would usually just give you like a breadcrumb trail to the next objective. And that's kind of how it worked. That was it. It was cool. It wasn't particularly deep. You just kind of did it. And in this game, they have expanded upon it, and it's so neat. It's so epic. It's epic. It's epic. It's epic. I was just trying to think of synonyms. I didn't want to say cool again. Essentially, it's the same basic premise of you go into first person and you scan little points of interest around the scene, but you do a recreation. You make a recreation of using your Bat computer tech of the crime scene, and like, well, there's this blood splatter on the floor, which suggests that someone was shot from this angle. And let's look at for a bullet hole or something, and you find the hole, and then you calculate the trajectory based on the hole, and you do a thing where you make like a reconstruction of like what had to have happened, and then you can press a button to go forward or backwards in the crime scene, and you'll see like the recreation fast forward and rewind, like in real time in like 3D space, with little like wireframe characters and stuff. And that's how like you put together, you'll track the motion of the bullet, and like now it's a straight line, and you go from the line to then now you scan like over here, and like, is there something? Oh, well, there's a bulb. There's like a glass bulb that's broken on the ground. So that it's broken in this way. That means the intruder probably came from here. From like outside on the window, and like you put together this whole thing, like a reconstruction of events, and it's so neat. It was great. Like I think it's awesome. Great idea. So basically, you find out that where is it? You like track Black Mask to somewhere, and then you find out, here's the big twist. Black Mask is actually the Joker. That's right, everyone. It's a Joker story. It's the Joker, baby. Yeah, that was a little bit deflating for me. You're in that crime scene. And there's like a text you pick up like a text on a phone that you find on the ground, and they're talking about a Joker guy. And I was like, oh no, please don't. Please don't. And you go and you find out that actually under the mask, it was the Joker, and he's been pretending to be Black Mask. And I was like, oh, okay. So he's the one who ordered all the hitmen stuff. And okay, all right. And then with, again, no other interactions with the other hitmen characters, you go and do this whole big trek through like the Gotham City Police Department. And you then eventually track down all the way to this big hotel. And to its credit, these sequences are good. The Arkham team is really good at making these great intricate maps. I wouldn't say super intricate, but like contained more linear sections of going through these, you know, buildings and stuff, solving puzzles to get through to the next point, going back and forth. Like, it's all really well. It has a great flow. The combat sections are good. It's all good, right? This whole section of fighting up through the floors of this old hotel are great, and you get to the top, and you have this big old fight with Joker and Bane, and that Bane fight is pretty good. It's like a better version of this fight from Asylum. And then the Joker gets away, and you do all this stuff, and you eventually track down the Joker, and you get him sent off to prison. And it really felt like the game was going to end. It really felt like that. It felt like Joker is going off to prison, and you get Harleen Quinzel pre-Harley Quinn. And these sequences of the Joker and the Batman going through this kind of abstract sequence of walking through like their psyches and stuff. And I was like, please do not don't show me credits. Do not show me credits. Don't do it. Please do not cut to credits. It really feels like we're going to cut to credits. Please do not end the game. Please do not tell me that's the whole game. And then the game keeps going. And I was like, okay. All right, hang on. Hang on, we can bring this around. We can actually turn this around. I'm curious now. Where is this going to go? And by the end of the game, they kind of won me back. I wasn't, if it was, my disappointment was we just did 2 Joker stories. Especially playing these games back to back, you know? We just did 2 Joker stories. Are we going to do it again, but act like we're not going to do it? Like, I'm not happy that it's the Joker again, right? It's maybe a subversion, but it's not like a fun one. Batman has a big wide world, and when you confine every single story to just being about the Joker, it feels extremely one note. Which is why I was really into the idea that the villain of the game was Black Mask, because it's different. It's different, and I think it's neat that you could take a villain like that and elevate him to a real threat and focus the story around him. And it's a great excuse to bring in other characters, because Black Mask is the kind of villain who is like, you write a Joker story, and Joker doesn't have to team up with anyone. He doesn't have to. Black Mask kind of does, you know? he's also like not so compelling of a character that he can carry a story on his own. But with like a partner or a small group of other villains, like supporting villains around him, yeah, no, you could tell a story like that. I'm into it. I'm interested. And then you reveal that it's all just Joker again, and I'm like, okay, all right. And is it about Joker in the end? Yeah. Yeah, it is. But that last stretch where it really gets to be about Bane, which I thought was kind of cool. Bane is actually pretty important. That was cool. That was neat. I'll say that. Let me look up who were all of the. Hang on, Batman, Arkham. Let me just look up all of them. There are a couple ones. There's a couple good sections. Killer Croc. Is Killer Croc supposed to be one of the assassins? No, what the fuck? He is not in the game. He is just not in the game. Okay, so just already take one of them out. Take one of the 8 out. Deathstroke taken out in a taken out in a really easy, kind of disappointingly easy boss fight. Let's see, Electrocutioner. Jobber. Shiva, relegated, kind of cool ninja lady, relegated to a short little side mission. Deadshot. With a better design than the one he has in City, I'll say. He's got an okay side mission. You know, it's basically a copy of the one from City where you're just tracking the bullet trajectories to find out where he is. And then you have kind of a neat little stealth section to take him down. Copperhead. I was not familiar with her, but she has a pretty neat segment. Reminds me a lot of the Scarecrow thing. She poisons Batman. She's like snake themed. And then you have these like, you fight her like hallucinations of her. And kind of cool. An actual memorable section of the game. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that is one of the things you do on the way. I said there's this big stretch where you're not doing any assassin stuff, anything to deal with them, but like, yes, you are. I just forgot about it. And then I called her memorable. Isn't that something? Firefly. I actually like Fireflies a lot. He's in that sort of end stretch where Bane... So this is neat. Bane has discovered Batman's true identity. He's discovered his true identity, and he's definitely on the way to Wayne Manor and the Batcave. And Batman gets distracted because he's forced to respond to this bomb threat by Firefly. Firefly is going to blow up a huge section of the Gotham bridge. It's this bridge that bridges the well, the reused map from Arkham City with the new stuff that they added. And that whole segment with Firefly is really good. That's a really good, like, going through the bridge. The interior with like all the maintenance hallways and stuff like that. Really cool. I like that a lot. Some good stealth sections, some good combat sections, some puzzle solving stuff. I was into it. And in the end, the boss fight with him, also pretty good. Pretty good. And then finally, Bane. It's neat to have a game that is so focused on him. He is... Well, it's funny because he is really important. He's really important to like the Arkham series because the venom, his evil juice is like the reason that the asylum plotline even happens. And then that directly that causes Joker to have like poisoning from the Titan formula, which causes many of the events of Arkham City. So like, yeah, Bane is actually kind of an important guy in these games, and giving him a focus and making him not just like, if you were really disappointed with the way that Bane was treated in the previous 2 games, you know, in the first game, he's just this stupid oaf, just that you make run into a wall and then beat him up. And in the second game in City, he's like, that's dumb. That's dumb. You like do this side quest where you're allied with him, and you got to blow up the like remaining Titan containers. And then he's like, actually, I'm going to take all the Titan for myself. And then you just like push him behind like a gate. It's like the kind of gate that they close up like a goddamn, like a shop at the mall with. And they're like, he can't break out of that. He's fucking gigantic. He can't do anything about this thin little gate. He's just like, pendejo. I love the way they write him. They're like, how do we let people know that he's Mexican? Let's just have him speak Spanglish all the time. That muy pendejo, cabron. Just at every sentence. In every sentence, he's dropping some kind of Spanish word. Bane actually gets some good play in this game. He's like a real threat. He has 1 or 2 or 3 different boss encounters. Really? Like multi-phase encounters that are good? He does turn giant. And there's sort of a neat, like, you have to like take him down with stealth kind of thing. He's actually cool. Bane gets some good respect in this game. Unlike Deathstroke, which is funny. What do they have against Deathstroke? Yeah, so, yeah. Is it executed in the way that maybe I would have wanted it to be? No. But it's not all bad. I do think that some of them are unfortunately sidelined. Killer Croc gets the short end of the stick perpetually. Jesus Christ. In Asylum, he's basically a glorified stage hazard. In City, he doesn't even show up. He's just mentioned. And here, you have like a fight with him at the very start of the game before they even set up the assassin thing. And then he just goes like, man, this is too much trouble. And then he just dips. He's just gone. He doesn't come back. Okay, wow, yeah, it's a great way to capitalize. Okay. It feels like they just couldn't find a way to use all those characters. So that part is disappointing. But the ones that are there and I think are used pretty well, you know? I kind of wish more of them had stuff like to the extent that Firefly did. Or Copperhead, right? Like these actual longer, memorable segments of gameplay. I like the map. So I thought it was funny how, well, gee, isn't it so convenient that Batman just keeps having adventures in this roughly 10-block area of Gotham City? Because I looked at the map and I immediately saw, oh, that's just the map from Arkham City. That's the map from City. And then you see the bridge at the bottom, and it leads all the way to some new areas. Now, there is always much ado about reusing assets and stuff like that in open world games. And I feel like the common sense take on that, like, you remember when Spider-Man 2 came out and people were like, what? They didn't completely remake the whole city of New York? These devs are so lazy. And you're like, dude, what? You wouldn't have even noticed. For me, it's like what I prefer is, you know, take those original areas, maybe touch them up, maybe fill them out a little more with some more content, Pretty it up, perhaps. Give it a facelift. But ultimately, I would just prefer an expansion. Give me some new locations to go to, right? And this game does that. It gives you like a whole other big section of the city, New Gotham, to explore. This is also taking place at a different point in time. It's taking place on Christmas. And the environments, it was actually kind of fun to go back through these areas, but at a different point in time. Some of the buildings are completely different. Obviously in Arkham City, all these places are like completely fucked up from what happens in that game. But yeah, there's kind of like a niceness. There's a nice Christmassy vibe to the game that I find kind of neat. I like that it takes place on Christmas Eve, so you get all these pretty lights around the city. The way that they solve the problem of having NPC people like out and about is that there is a mandatory curfew because of the prison break at the start of the game. So that's how they get around that. But yeah, so the returning areas look nice. It's neat to see them in a different time period with a different look. And I will frequently see places that I recognized. And that was cool. I enjoyed that. And then there's quite a bit of new stuff to go through as well. And all that stuff is pretty decent as far as I can tell. Because I'm definitely not as familiar with it because, well, the fact that the world is so much bigger means that, in Arkham City, you end up traversing the same amount of land over and over and over again, and oftentimes taking the same routes because, of just the way that the game's traveling works. Because, well, if there's a big tall building, it's just convenient to aim for that to get a ton of height, right? So you get pretty familiar with that city. That's that area of the city over the course of that game. And in this one, because you're going back and forth, I haven't built up quite that same familiarity with it. But it is, let's just say, roughly the same quality. I'm a little disappointed in the fact that there's no riddles in this one. The Riddler is here as Enigma, and he's tied into like a bunch of the collectible stuff. Of course, he has what are basically Riddler trophies, although they're like blackmail documents that he has that he's scattered around the city for some reason. And he's also tied into the fast travel system. So that was so again in Arkham City, the world wasn't so big that it was difficult to travel around from one point of the map. Like you could travel from one end to the other pretty fast. A lot faster than you might expect. In Origins, it is so much larger that they have added fast travel in, which I'm fine with. It's a solution to a problem, a natural problem. But in order to unlock that fast travel, you have to there's like radio towers all over the city, and Riddler has set them up so that they're like interfering with the signal for your landing, your bat jet landing locations. So you got to go solve a puzzle on the radio tower, and then and then that'll reveal the locations of a bunch of different network transmitters. And then when you take all of them out, then you will unlock fast travel for that little neighborhood. So you have to earn it. It's not just going to give it to you for free, which I like. I think generally most people agree that it's nicer when you don't just unlock fast travel immediately by going somewhere. It's not, you have to go actually accomplish something. You have to do something in order to earn the right to convenience. And it makes progressing later in the game and actually wrapping up like all the collectibles and stuff a lot easier, because you're just going to be naturally filling that stuff out as you go along, and you get to fast travel here and there to speed up the process. It's fine. It's good. It works. I guess I don't know. I don't know if I really have too much to nitpick. Here's the thing that I noticed in the last game. The PC ports of these games are weird. I was like, I swear to God, I'm not seeing things. And I know for a fact it's happened enough times that I'm not seeing things. The PC ports, it might be because I have my hitbox plugged in, like my leverless controller plugged in, and it's registering that as a gamepad style controller. But the PC ports will occasionally, when you see a button prompt, it will show you the controller symbol. It'll show you, like, you know, one of the most common ones you see constantly is on PC. It's press F to grapple to a point, right? But I constantly catch like right bumper. I think it's right bumper. Right bumper appear and then get replaced by the F symbol, by the F key, and I'm like, whoa, what? Hang on, what? I swear, and it happened enough times, and there was one point where it was totally like the blue Xbox controller X button, the X button. It was totally that, and I saw it, and then it got replaced by whatever, and I was like, oh. I'm not crazy. That has nothing to do with anything really in the game. I noticed it, and I feel like I have to acknowledge it. I have to mention it at least once. But yeah, I don't really know why I remember people sort of disliking this game. I'm not entirely sure why. I think it's actually got a lot of really strong points to it. I think it looks great. I love the way it looks. You can tell it's more of a next gen title, and compared to City, and you can see the graphical improvement in the lighting and the fidelity of the character models. It's not too much, but it's definitely appreciable. Yeah, I don't know. It's a cool game. It might have just been that, you know, it didn't have the same wow factor that you get when you jump from Asylum to City. Like, that is a woo, okay, woo, damn, hot damn, right? Like, that's a hot damn jump. City to Origins is a lot more incremental. It's a lot more like, it's a lot more of like, a lot of stuff is the same, I guess. It's just, there's more of it, and the ways in which it is, let's see, does it do anything better? Well, boss fights for one. Definitely. Well, actually, the City didn't have terrible boss fights. It just was very, you could tell they were very like, let's not, you know, let's try to stay away from boss fights. This game leans into it and does them really well. Probably has a better story. Again, like, okay. Yeah, the stories in these games are weird. Asylum is fine. It's a perfectly serviceable Batman story. It's the kind of story where if it was a comic book, you would be like, why did this have to be told? But as a game, it works because, I don't know, it's because it is such an archetypal feeling Batman story that isn't trying to do anything crazy. It's not going for anything crazy conceptually. It ends up becoming like a very, how would you describe it? It embodies being a Batman game, right? It makes you feel like Batman. It's like, this isn't a crazy different Batman story where they're experimenting with stuff. They're hitting like a formula. They're doing like a tried and true kind of thing. and there just isn't a lot of, there's not a lot of room for them to mess up. City is definitely a lot more high concept, but a little silly in parts. And again, I've pointed out about how the script is a little weird. I wouldn't say it blew me away with its narrative. Origins has, I like it. I probably like its story the most. I still wouldn't say it absolutely blew me away or anything. But it was definitely the most interesting in how hard they actually tried to sell me on the emotions of the characters. Like, there's some good scenes in here. There's some good emotional scenes of stuff going down. Batman is a lot more emotional in general, which I like. He gets a little more hardened and a little more like it's just another day on the job by the later games, or earlier games, the games that take place later. But here he's still very, very aggressive and almost cruel. Definitely more cruel now that I think of it. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of like another good Arkham game. Definitely worth checking out. It's got a lot of neat stuff in it. I'm still looking forward to 100%ing it and getting all the stuffs and completing. So there's still side stories that I haven't done. Yeah, I would say good. I don't get why people were so meh on it. I would give it a recommendation. And with that, I will definitely be... Well, someone's pulling out outside. Someone's skidding out. I will definitely be drawing this to a close. If you've been listening this far, thank you for listening to me ramble. If you have a question, feel free to leave it down in the comments below, but please phrase it in the form of a question because I'm not just going to read your thoughts out loud. I've been Tygan, still chipping away at the next script. You can check out my Patreon, and goodbye.